everyone, Tony Tonkin here from the Child Protection Party. Glad you could be with us here on another Sunday night live feed. Now, if you're interested in anything that we're doing in the Child Protection Party, now's a great opportunity to have a chat to our Vice President, who's Clinton DeYoung, and our Secretary, Avery Hilditch. If you've got any issues whatsoever, this is your chance to have a conversation with us. So I would just like to, before we start talking about our topic tonight, which is the death, a report that has been issued in Queensland in relation to children's deaths, a very serious and very concerning topic for all of us. I'd just like to welcome Avery and Clinton on board. How are you guys?
I'm good.
I think we should be coming up soon. It's just taken a while.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, good to see you. How are you, Clinton?
Fantastic, really good.
All right, that's the way. We're kind of up and running. It says for signal it should resume shortly, so there might just a bit of a hiccup. But we'll continue on as if there's no problems whatsoever. And I don't know whether that's going through to YouTube as we speak. Yes, it is. So that's all working on YouTube. So those people on YouTube, please contribute as well. So we'll just continue on as if it's all happening. Okay, now, Clinton, this was an issue that you raised specifically, and you sent me the particular the information in relation to this. I've read it through. Do you want to go through any aspect of this before we just read through the article and what it says about the deaths of kids and the concern that has for us as a political party?
Yeah, I think just really quickly, when I was reading this morning, I think what first came to me is I've been doing this for probably 8-9 years now in the child protection system, and how many investigations have we had? How many government reviews? How many child death review boards have been investigated? How many recommendations have handed down? I've actually lost count. And here we've got another one, which has been released this year. So I'm not sure what's going to change.
Yeah, and actually, to be honest, that's one of the issues that I wanted to raise too today, is that we seem to be having thousands of these inquiries. And as you rightfully say, nothing at all seems to change. They just seem to be perpetuating the same old story over and over again. In fact, there was something in this report at the very end of it that I wanted to highlight, and I really wanted us to talk about. So we will do that. So do you want to go through it when I bring it up, Clinton? Do you want to talk about it, or?
Sure.
It'll be coming up on the screen, I hope, very, very soon. Oops, I'm sorry, I've got to put it up here. Wrong screen up. Silly me. It's been one of those days. So this was reported, I think, in the ABC, wasn't it? Is that right, Clinton?
Yeah, the ABC.
Yep. So I'll just read past it and then you want to comment. There is deep concern over the rise in suicides of vulnerable children known to the state's protection system, which is continuing to deal with entrenched systemic issues, a government review has found. Now, we have thousands of these government reviews, Clinton. They're in abundance, as you're saying, and nothing ever seems to change as a result. The Child Death Review, now each state has a Child's Death Review Board, I want to add. I think they have one in South Australia anyway. So they examined the deaths of 55 children who were associated with the Department of Child Protection between 2020 and 2021. And I just need to say, guys, that it is a concern to all of us, I'm quite sure, when there's any death of a child. And I don't know if there's any such thing as an unwarranted death. Clearly, kids do die from medical complications or through some sort of illness that they might have, or some birth defect or whatever. So children do die. We accept all of that. But the fact that in this case they're examining 55 children, and I guess that is the number of kids significant? No, it isn't. If a child dies and it could have been prevented, then I guess that's the key issue that we need to focus on. Is that you okay with that, Clinton? That's kind of where we're coming from, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, of the group reviewed, 45 had lost as a result of external causes, including 10 who suffered assault or neglect. So, of that 55, 45 have lost their lives as a result of external causes. So that's something apart from that physical illness or whatever it might be. I think that's what it's saying. Tell me if you think you read it differently. Includes 10 who suffered assault or neglect and 6 who self-harmed. So of that number, other factors were involved in the death of 10 children, and 6 children were self-inflicted. So they were the ones that died as a result of suicide. More than half of the children were under the age of... Can you believe that figure? I reckon that figure's wrong. Clinton, what do you think of that? Do you agree with that figure or not?
I hope it's wrong.
Well, I'm still credulous. When I first read that, I thought, no, I've got to check this out with my mate Clinton because I'm sure he knows the answer, but maybe not. So I hope it's wrong. But if it is right, what is that telling us? That more than half of the children were under the age of 4. So that's 5 or 6 children, I guess they're saying. Or are they talking about the 6 who self-harmed? I don't know what they're talking about. It's a bit unclear. But anyway, some children under the age of 4. I mean, those people watching us, what do you think of that? Is that how... Clinton, can you help me out here? How can you explain any of that? Can you?
I think it's very hard to explain. If you're a child in Queensland, and you're a child in care in Queensland, the rate doubles that you'll die while you're coming into contact with a system while you're in care. Children in the child protection system die at twice the rate than any of the children in Australia.
Yeah. So there's something. So what they're saying here is, and this is acknowledged at the end of this, that there's something wrong with this system, right? Now we at the Child Protection Party have known there's been something wrong with this system for decades. Like, this is not new to us. But I guess what these figures demonstrate to us is that specifically around suicide, deaths of young people, they are extremely high. The report, which also looked at data from the child death registers between 2004 and 2019, found suicide in older children remained an area of deep concern, as did the disproportionate representation of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander deaths. Again, not telling us anything that we didn't already know. Rates of suicides for young people aged 15 to 17 in particular showed a statistically significant change over this period, increasing. So the change wasn't going down, buddy. This change is going up, increasing by an average of 3.5% per year, the report said. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children accounted for about 8% of the Queensland child population, but 32% of all suicides by children in Queensland so 32%. So it's 8%. Now, who's taken note of any of this? Right? 8% of Queensland child protection, but 32% of all suicides by children in Queensland between 2015 and 2000. Appropriate management plan. Okay, before we move on, Clinton, talk to me about this one. Appropriate.
I think when a child comes into care, it's important that they're assessed appropriately. So obviously, it looks like when they're coming into care, when they're coming into the care of department, they're becoming noticed by the government. You know, it's important that they're screened and they're assessed, and that the support that they need is given to them. And obviously, from the outset, as soon as they're coming in, they're already slipping through the cracks. So what does that say about our child protection system in Queensland? It doesn't work, for starters. If you're coming into the system and you're already falling through the cracks and not getting the help that you need.
Yeah, and I guess it's also, it's saying the people that are managing the system, then Clinton, then clearly they're not doing their job. So does this mean why wouldn't they be managing these kids appropriately? Are they ineffectual? Are they just crappy workers? Does the system not care? What are the reasons why all these kids are falling through the cracks? It's obvious, as the plant that knows in your face, that the system is failing these kids, but we continue to allow it to happen. Avery, your microphone's off, I think.
It is. I said it's a combination of all of the above.
Okay.
Incompetence, ineffectiveness, etc. All those things that you listed.
This is a concern. This is the reason why people should be upset and people should be complaining to ministers, to local authorities, whoever, or alternatively, they should be helping us to get elected so that we can make a difference come the state election here and federally, Like, we point out this stuff, but where are the people jumping up and down saying, yeah, Tony and Avery and Clinton, we agree with you. Do you agree or don't you agree? This is, oh God. These sorts of news items tell us that we have a child protection system that is harming kids. It is so inappropriate that they don't have an appropriate management plan to work with children. And as a result of this, kids are dying. Yet there's no outcry. We're the only ones that seem to be kicking up a fuss.
From a report that I saw today, it's not just the child protection system, is it? Because a 12-year-old named Drake Hardman killed himself because he was being bullied at school, and from what I see on the article here, the school knew about it and did very little about it. So the schools failed him. Somebody said that the parents knew about it. I don't know about that, but the school.
Yeah, that's a great point. There's all this other area as well. So we could blame the child protection system, and rightfully so. We could blame the education system, and rightfully so. We could blame parents for not being aware as to what's happening in their kids' lives or how kids are feeling about certain things, or to know whether they're being harassed or bullied, or whether there's some
it can also be that it could also be that the parents are aware and that their child is bullying somebody and do nothing about it.
Well, I think that's the converse. I think you're dead right. That there's there's a whole sense of responsibility that should be taken around all of this that no one seems to take responsibility for. And if you're going to have leaders in this country, don't you need the political class to take the lead on all of this and to do something about it? I think so. Why aren't they?
Yes.
Where are they? We're the only political party that's making this challenge, aren't we? So,
yep.
Okay, I'll just go on a little bit further, just before I get too worked up. It also found almost 60% of older children under the supervision of youth justice who were at risk of self-harm. Well, I read that one out before. Continued workload. Oh, geez, I feel so sad. Continued workload pressures and resourcing limitations of child safety officers were also observed in the report as leading to shortcuts when reviewing a child's protection history. So, who's responsible for those lower workloads? Well, department, the government. Who holds them to account?
Wouldn't a lower workload be better?
Continued workload pressure and resourcing limitations.
Yeah,
Clearly,
that suggests to me a high workload rather than a lower workload.
There is a higher workload. Yeah, and clearly they need to have a workload that's manageable so that we can look after kids in an appropriate way, be aware as to what's happening to them, and so on. In several matters it reviewed, errors were made, obvious patterns of harm were missed, and incorrect recordings were made about the family's history, which persisted over multiple records for the family, the report said. Despite some problems currently being addressed, the report found there were still several entrenched systemic issues. Hello. It also made recommendations that centred around the accuracy and quality of child protection assessments, including identifying cumulative harm a child might be exposed to. We understand all of that shit, but I just want to come down to this bottom bit. So, what did we learn? Now, Clinton, I need you to dive in on this in a second. Attorney General Shannon Fenderman said in a statement the government was committed to further improving systems, policies and practices. The death of a child in any circumstance is an absolute tragedy, and it's crucial that when a child known to the child protection system dies, we learn from these tragedies to prevent future deaths. I'm about to use the F word here because that is just... Anyway, a Shadow Minister for Child Protection, Amanda Cam, said in a statement the report showed clear government failures. I'll talk about this in a second. All Queenslanders deserve to know that children in the care of child services are being protected, she said. We owe it to every single one of these innocent children to act. Now, guys, where have we heard all of that shit before? You know? We have. We hear this crap over and over again. Don't we? You know, like, they know the system's failing. They know and acknowledge that they've failed. How many times do they have to say that? How many friggin' inquiries do we have to have? And everybody admits that the system is not the way that it is, yet choose to do nothing about changing it. Any comments, Clinton?
I think it's a really typical statement for the government to make. I mean, child protection systems are failing all around Australia, not just in Queensland and South Australia and WA. All around Australia, child protection systems are letting children down and letting communities down and letting families down. I mean, how much longer are we going to keep making these statements that, you know, children harming themselves are of deep concern and obviously children dying is a tragedy? How many times do we need to keep saying these things before something actually happens? And, you know, we make a change for the better.
Yeah, and you know what? Okay, guys, what is it do you think that needs to happen in order for governments to stand up and say, okay, we've stuffed up here? Like you know, they mentioned the Shadow Minister of Child Protection. I don't know who Amanda Cam is. It says, now I can guarantee you that, so should be the Liberal Party member up there, I can guarantee you that she does not have a plan to make it better. Or otherwise, she would have said, these are the things that we're going to do if we get into Parliament. You know, but the reality is that the opposition, no matter who they are, Labor or Liberal, never have a plan to make changes that significantly changes the child protection system. They just don't.
No. No, we've got the proof of that in our current minister. I'm going to make significant changes, and it's going to be a maximum of 3.5% kids being taken into care each year, and it's around 25% a year now, the increase or something like that.
Yeah, and we know because we've written to her and asked her,
yeah,
you know, what have you done? We sent out a stack of memes at some point, didn't we, Avery, saying, you know,
we did.
You promised all these things, but you've done nothing. You know, I mean, Clinton, you're in WA. Did the same thing happen there?
Yes, it happens all the time. The same minister says the same old thing. They're going to make great changes because the Department of Child Protection here is this huge, giant department which incorporates disability services, housing, domestic violence, child protection, and it's this massive department and has a huge amount of power and reach into people's lives.
So, and we've got, I was just having a look at some of the feedback we've got here. So we had Marion O'Brien said, "I've had 3 children, my grandkids in my care for what happened 20-year period, and the inconsistency is appalling. Would you like me to write a book?" Marion, go for it right away. Get as many books out there as you can. But something's got to be done. We are told that it's given that kids in care have behavioural issues. Tracy, kids in care have a behavioural issue. Are you saying that 100% of the kids that in care have behavioural issues? And are you saying that 100% of the kids that go in care had behavioural issues before they went in care? Because neither of those statements are true. Neither of them.
They certainly come out with behavioural issues.
That they do. They do. And some kids go into care traumatised, sometimes from their crappy parents' behaviour, sometimes from being just removed from their parents, right? Either way, it's a double whammy. And the kids get traumatised because they don't have anybody who actually cares for them, apart from their parents who want them back. And it just goes on and on. Have you looked at the Family's Culture draft of David's? I don't know, Trace, who you're talking about there. But I'll have a look at it. Tracy, if you could just let me know where that is. More than happy to look at it. And look, a lot of kids, this information that we got, I think, from this review was about overall kids that so the factor is that it was about kids that had died in Queensland, and the point I think they're making is that of the how many kids were there altogether? Due to the state government last October, but only tabled in Parliament on Thursday, deaths of 55 children. So it was 55 kids who, I don't know how many kids though. Okay, the report is inconclusive, I think, as to how many kids actually died in Queensland. And we're only talking about the 55 children who died that were associated to the Department of Child Safety. I would like to also know how many other kids had died in Queensland that were not associated with the Department of Child Safety, and what were the circumstances around their deaths. This article is particularly focusing on the kids that were in care, but how many others died? That's the question as well. And whether or not the issues are not always just about kids that were in care. The issues are also about other kids that may have died, and what were the circumstances around their deaths, because those issues also need to be looked after. We can't just look at one area which we know is in trouble. It's stuff we're told that crap over and over again, but there's also this other issue about kids that are dying needlessly, and what are the circumstances around their deaths, because I would like to know whether the causes of their deaths are around bullying, social media, impact of social media on their lives, whether it's about a whole range of other stuff, whether it's about mental well-being, whether it's about being able to access or not being able to access mental health issues for young people, which I spoke about a week or so ago, because I know that that's a problem. So these are all issues, I think, that we need to find the space to address, not just those kids that may have died while in care. Any other comments come through, Avery, that you want to talk about?
Yeah, Tracy came back and she said David said something about making the CPS responsible to supply housing if parents are homeless. Then they can't take the kids away because they're homeless. And she's also said that the David that she's referring to is David Shoebridge, who's an MLC in the New South Wales Parliament. She just said it was David Shoebridge, and I've just looked him up.
All right. And what's his role in the New South Wales Parliament?
He's on the select committee of the Powerhouse Museum, and
good for him.
The point there that Tracy was saying is that this guy David Shoebridge has suggested that Child Protection Services in New South Wales
Yeah.
If there's a family that's homeless, they should help find a home for the family rather than. I think
Nice
that's what
idea.
she's saying. Yeah, great idea. And it's. I mean, I've been saying for a long time that all state governments should invest in social housing.
Spot
You know,
on.
we've got thousands of people that are homeless. We got something like 17,000 waiting for a housing trust house here, and the state government does nothing about it. And
spot on.
that leads to crime and drugs and poverty and all these issues that we see every day.
Yeah, and that I guess the sad thing about a lot of this stuff is that it never changes. That I guess ostensibly that's my kind of stick around all of this, and it does. It just simply needs to change, and we need to do something about it real quick. And the best way to do that is to support Child Protection Party, right, Avery?
Absolutely. Join, donate.
Join, donate, get involved, help us if we do the election thing this year. Help us to get involved with that. Help us to get people elected federally so that we can have some power and authority there as well.
Instead of being a drop in the ocean, become a part of the ocean.
True. So let's get involved. All right, guys, any parting words before we go?
Not for me.